I'm starting a new game here in standard difficulty. I'll be explaining what I'm doing as well as my thought process, and hopefully you'll be able to get something out of it. So here we go. What I'm typically looking for is rich fish and a type of foraged good. In this particular game, I also have clay and iron off to the left, so that's a pretty good start. The fertility overlay, we can have a look at where the good barley location is, and where barley is the most important one, and where the wheat is, which happens to be in the same place, and rye is typically going to be always pretty good. What I like to do is put some roads down to mark this area out, and for one thing, I don't accidentally build into it later on. And I'll be doing the same thing for the berries. Your labor force is the most important resource in the game, at least in the first year. As you might already know, at 55% approval, you get one new immigrant a month. But with fresh settlement bonus, you get one regardless, so that's potential 2 a month. The difficult part here is how do we get to 55% approval as soon as possible. And that's why I'm doing all this while the game's paused, because the next few steps are going to be super time critical. One ox is not enough, so I always buy another one. I'm moving the camera so that it's aligned with the in-game grid system. Just a habit of mine, you don't have to do that. Trying to get the first building down, which is the logging camp, and 6 houses. And all of these need to be close to the initial supply dump. Right now I'm using quartz bits and a storehouse to plan where my burgage spots are going to be. You'll see why in a moment I like this design. So in the middle I have a double home plot with a huge extension size, and then to the left and right of it, a total of 6 more. Now obviously we don't have the logs to be able to do all of them, and that's why we need to have the logger down ASAP. Now at this point I have 3 houses in the queue and no lumber. The thing is, the guys are cutting the trees down, but there's not enough ox to transport them to the construction sites and also to pick up the new logs that are being cut down. So that's why we really needed to buy that ox at the start. And if you didn't forget to buy it at the start, it should arrive right about now. We need 6 houses by the 2nd of April. So I'm putting houses down as soon as I get 2 logs. That's 2 logs per house. Also note that every house has an extension, even if it's tiny. I don't build houses without extension spaces. I think it's a terrible waste. I'm doing a granary next. You can also do storehouse, but you won't have time to do both. So pick your favorite. It's March 27th. I've got my 6 houses. And for this run, I'm picking this origin off the Vogtland. I think it's the most overpowered one for the early game, which is the most important part of the game. So the next thing is a well and a marketplace. So these 2 things need to be down by the 16th of April. So I'm ahead of track at the moment, but not by much, because the granary guys need to go pick up the bread, bring it back to the granary, and then set up the food market stalls. So that, together with the water well, that will get you to 55%. That's the first immigrant on April 2nd, and I can't stress this enough, you have to keep building houses. No vacancies, no growth. Don't worry about the food running out, don't worry about the fuel running out, don't worry about your stuff getting soaked. They'll be fine. The goal is 55% approval by the 16th. Now that ox that we bought, he's not fine, he's homeless, and he's gonna run off in June. So the next thing is to get that hitching post up. For food we have carp, which also happens to be the best for income. Time check, it's April 9th, so I have about a week to get the 7th house up. Storehouse is next, but not before the fishing hut. That's April 16th, and the 2nd immigrant. That 2nd hitching post just got up, so that ox shouldn't have a running beef with me anymore. I hate it when my beef runs away. Now my fish resource is full, and it's also growing. And with off the Vogtland Origin, there's almost 400 fish in there, and I want to get as much of them out as possible. So I'm putting the maximum 3 people on the fishing hut, and trying to look for where I might pull people out of other buildings. And I don't need logs, so I take one off from the logs. You're not going to be having the luxury of doing this if you didn't get those 2 people in the first month. It's the 24th of April. Now the next deadline is May the 2nd, so that's why I'm prioritizing the 8th house, even above the storehouse if it comes to that. But anyway, it looks like the storehouse gets done first. At this point I'm worried the 8th house won't finish in time. And looking at the replay myself, I think I may have forgotten to staff the storehouse. Although that isn't the priority right now. So anyways, while I have this paused, I'm gonna prepare the next bunch of houses, because once it is done, I'm gonna have to get the 9th, 10th, and so on done. So that's what I'm doing right here. So a little bit more about the design of this Burgage plot is a storehouse with 2 corpse pits on the sides. And notice how the bordering roads leaves a gap on the left and right, but not the top. And the corpse pit with that gap will get you 3 single houses, so a total of 6, and the one in the middle will be a double plot with a plus 350% extension size, where cabbages will cost, and if you do carrots, it'll be about 144 regional wealth, cabbages about 216, and beets about 96. And with rich fish and regular berry and off the Vogtland Origin, we're going to be able to do all 3, maybe even a 4th, well before winter. Oh, and this morning I realized the storehouse isn't staffed, but in hindsight, it wasn't much time lost because I was paused the whole time. So now I'm looking around for where I might pull people off to go work the storehouse temporarily, just to pull those supplies off the ground. And hopefully remember to go put them back when that's done, preferably in gathering, where they are the most useful. That's May 2nd and the 3rd immigrant, so now the focus is on the 9th house. Store supplies are still on the ground, so I'm going to put the new guy in the fishing hut. So when should you build a double burgage plot versus a single? And it's pretty simple. If you're growing veggies or fruits, do a double. For everything else, do a single, because having more people on a blacksmith or a bakery or goats or chickens are not going to increase production. So while it takes a little bit more space to do many singles versus fewer doubles for a given population size, doing it this way allows me to eventually get a lot more chickens, a lot more goats, a lot more pigs. And right here you can see me babysitting this house. It's almost finished, but not quite. I'm wondering if it'll get done on time. And it barely finishes with about 2 days left to spare. At this point I know it's time to start trading, so I'm trying to decide where to put the trading post, which ideally should be close to the storehouse, but at the same time, how would that affect me being able to also put down a church in the same area? New guy goes into the woodcutter, and now the 10th house is going to be the focus. What I'm doing here is assigning the work location of the logger to be separate from the woodcutter. This way they won't cut into each other's resource base, and on that point, you don't have to worry about the berries being cut down. So that was fixed in a new feature in the previous version. And also the benefits of splitting up the work area also allows you to target specific places where you want the trees to cut down, places where you know you will develop in the future. So you don't want those trees to go to waste. If you simply build over them, you just lose the tree without getting the logs. So as soon as the trading post goes up, I'm going to be staffing it and buying the carp trading route, which will greatly increase the trade frequency. And with 90 fish, you're not going to be able to trade that off in time with your own traders, especially if you don't have horses. A trader can only move 10 items at a time, but with a horse, he can do 50. And when you pay to establish a route, you're basically paying for a foreign trader to come regularly, and he's going to come with a horse. For 30 coin, that's a steal. And just before this, you also saw me putting the sawmill down, which you might think is late. And this sawmill isn't going to be up till June. And the reason why you don't need a sawmill this early is because you don't need the planks that early. You don't need a level 2 house this early, so you don't need a church, and you don't need to upgrade the Burgage plots to veggie or fruit farm yet because you don't have the regional wealth to seed them anyway. So I'm starting a new block here, and the reason why I'm doing that, even though I have space up top, is because you can't really control where the new immigrant will go. And I really want them to go into the center house, where the veggies will be. So I'm starting a new block here to basically make a new veggie plot. You can see the gap that I'm leaving to the left of the corpse fit. That's what will eventually allow me to fit 3 houses under the corpse fit. If you don't leave the gap, you'll be able to fit 2 double houses, but that's not what I want. One more tip, you can also see me using the camera to draw a straight line by panning it using WASD as opposed to dragging the mouse. So what this does is allows me to draw perfect 90-degree angles, which is impossible to do by hand because the camera perspective, and I apologize if I'm being too technical, it's not orthographic, so you can't really tell if an angle is 90 degrees just by looking at it. It's really only possible if what you're looking at is exactly in the center of the screen. Now my first trader is coming back, and he just got me 50 coin. That's from selling 10 fish, and that's all he can carry without a horse, so that's why we need the external traders. Of course, eventually we'll get our own horse, but that'll cost 60, and we only have 50 right now. At this point, I'm preparing to get the second gathered food, so that's going to be berries. And I chose to put this closer to my town instead of the berry bush itself. And the reason is it actually doesn't need to be that close. For a small bush size, one person can easily deplete it over the course of the year. So there's going to be no problems if he's going to be spending a lot of time walking. We just received more coin, so that's a horse. Just remember to assign the horse. And on that point, you can assign all 4 horses, even though you don't have them yet, just in case you forget. With the planks that I'm getting, I'm going to be upgrading the veggie plots in anticipation for my horse trader, who should be back soon, with 200 plus coin. So 250 will allow me to get cabbages in July, which is just in time for harvest. Or if he comes back with less, I can do carrots, also harvesting before winter. That's 245 coin, so I did trade out 49 fish, just enough for cabbages. And starting them in July will give me more than the 18 weeks needed for them to grow. In fact, I'll have 2 weeks to harvest them. Not all, but some. And every bit helps, because the more veggies I have, the more berries and fish that I can sell right now, and still have enough food for the winter. You also just saw me exporting berries a minute ago, which I strongly recommended the first year, because the last thing you want to have is 100 berries just wasting away in the granary when you could have sold them. Now, I'm also putting down a charcoal kiln, so this will be the future export to support reduced export of fish in the second year. The entire time I haven't been selling any firewood, but in case you're on a different playthrough, or if you don't have fish, you can actually do charcoal much earlier than this. So that's another 50 coin. Not enough for carrots yet, but it should be soon. And for carrots, you're aiming for August, 4 weeks after cabbages, and still be able to harvest them before winter. So we're good. That's another 50 coins, so we're good for carrots. Now beets can be seeded in September, so right now I'm looking at the date and the money I have to decide if I should get another horse first, which I don't think I did. In hindsight, I think that could have been a mistake, because I do have plenty of time to seed the beetroot in September. That's the 8th family to join. I haven't missed a single one yet. No, I'm back at the trading post again, thinking if I should get that horse, which I should have. Okay, now let's talk about fuel here. So in winter, every plot consumes twice as much fuel, so 2 a month instead of 1. So to estimate the fuel that you'll need, it's about 6 months supply. We're projecting to a population of 20 by December, so that's 120 fuel for the winter, which you can either stock up on 120 firewood or 60 firewood if you convert all of it into charcoal. And 60 firewood isn't that much, so technically, again, if you don't have fish, you can sell fuel. It's totally fine. So I'm setting up the 4th growing plot here, and I'm thinking to either do second carrot or cabbage or fruit, but I do recommend you to start with fruit, probably apples because it's cheaper. And the reason is you do want to start fruit early, even if your town doesn't need it, because the yield is pretty bad in the first year, and it takes 3 to 4 years to get up to maximum yield. So you do want to plant your fruit early if you can. And for the veggies, for plot sizes this big and with 2 families each, I'm expecting the cabbages to yield about 210 cabbage a year, carrots about 160, and beets about 90 to 100. And I got these numbers from my veggie research, which I posted on Reddit. And I am running the Vogtland Origin, so that's already within agricultural penalty. So if you don't play this origin, you'll get higher numbers. So I just got the beets in August. I'm at, so everything's going perfect. I'm building the 4th farm into fruit. And at this point, I'm looking at the fuel situation, trying to figure out how many people I should have in woodcutter and charcoal to try to get that 60 firewood or 120 charcoal for winter, and then sell the rest. So for charcoal, we do need to spend on the trade route, or else no trade happens. I initially set the reserve limit to a low number to try to get the first batch out as soon as possible, and later on I will be adjusting that limit to about 120. So now it is August. Typically in September it's harvest time for wheat, rye, and barley, and so on, and they will spend a full month picking up that harvest. And then October is the plowing and sowing time. So before October happens, I need to set up the fields, upgrade the plowing station, and then also ensure that I have at least 3 ox, excluding the one that's used for construction and logging. So the goal here is to try to set up 3 individual morgens, 2 of them going to barley and 1 to wheat. And in this version of the game, or if you were playing in beta a couple versions ago, barley consumption was significantly increased, or ale consumption was increased, I should say. So 2 morgen barley is barely enough for a population of 40, and definitely not enough going into year 3. So 2 morgen barley right now, and we'll worry about subsequent years where we will increase farming to 3 to 5 morgens. So right now I'm drawing in this closed off space about 6 morgens, where each plot is 1 morgen, but I will only be working with 3 of them this year. Now, manpower wise, that's 3 families and 3 ox, and that's easily going to be achievable by October using the maximum growth strategy here. So I will probably have 4 or 5 people to be able to work the fields, but for sake of demonstration, I'm only going to be doing 3 for now. The other 3 here will be fallow. So I didn't have time earlier to explain my choice for choosing the origin. It's off the Falkland, simply because it's the best one for regional wealth, especially early game regional wealth. And in the late game, it continues to scale by you selling the minor trade carrots, which you'll have a ton of. And with regional wealth, you can get everything else you need, like barley, tools, roof tiles if you want, sheep, even treasury, which you can get via taxation of your own regional wealth. Which, by the way, doesn't increase export value by 50%. Based on rounding errors, a carp which normally sells for 3 actually goes for 5 with that origin, which is in fact a 67% increase. Exactly the same case with carrots, going from 3 to 5, also a minor trade, and firewood goes from 1 to 2, which is a 100% increase. And that's exactly the same for berries and mushroom as well. And when we're talking about several hundred regional wealth worth of exports within, just 3 or 4 months, not even the Regensburg Guildsman can compete with that. That's the other origin that's often picked for regional wealth purposes. So that's 200 regional wealth that just came in. Still not enough for apples, but we'll make it before winter. So the date is September 11th, and I'm just opening the records here to show you 800 regional wealth export total, with the most recent trade being 40 fish for 200. So that's the right time to raise the reserve for the fish immediately after a trade is complete, because what you don't want to happen is set a reserve that's too high, which, depending on how many he's carrying at the moment, could actually end up canceling his trade. An important tip about upgrading your houses, whether it's creating an extension or adding a second house. If it's vacant but pending an upgrade construction, nobody can move in. So that's what you want to pay attention to. If you only have one vacancy, don't upgrade it. But in this case, I have 4, so it's okay for me to upgrade this guy. And right now I'm just trying to figure out what was just traded, so that's berries. So if I wanted to increase the limit of berries, now would be the time. At this point I realized I over-harvested the berries, so that's when I pull people out. In the ideal case, you want to take it down to 70% of maximum, so that it can hit 98-99% in spring. But for the first year, I'm okay to overdo it a little, because the main goal is to actually get early regional wealth to get those veggie and fruit started. So at this point, in September, we're well over 1,000 regional wealth and exports, which allows me to seed apples in September and guarantee a harvest in the following September. I'm pulling out the last berry guy and putting it in the farm. Since it's October, where everyone should be plowing and sowing fields. But since I only have 2 ox, one of those fields is going to have to be manually plowed, so that's why I put the extra family in there. I'm putting the church down because I do want to upgrade some of these houses to level 2, preferably the veggie and fruit farms, but not while they're harvesting. So that's going to be done in December. So a church right now is totally fine. I'm checking the fields for the status. I see some of them are plowing, so I can't pull the ox out yet. That's what I intend to do. I need those ox back. So I'm preparing the next block of houses here. Pears, probably. I do note on the side I do have an additional water well. I do prefer to have more wells instead of one big upgraded well, because people actually do spend time walking to collect water, and I do want to have water sources spread out. Plus, 2 wells are cheaper than one upgraded well. So all three fields are either growing or sowing. So that means I can pull the ox out. That'll help speed up construction and logging. So it's already November, so I'm checking the farm again. I click on labor and notice everyone's out of the fields. I notice some of them are even harvesting. And since they can't possibly be harvesting wheat or barley, they must be harvesting at home. So that must mean the carrots and beets are already coming in. So perfect. So November and winter period is when you want to focus on gathering all the raw materials for the second year upgrades. So that's the stone, clay, iron, and we have plenty of people for that. So that's going to come from the 4 families that I put in the farms. They can come out and do gathering. And with that many people, I can put a lot of them on gathering. So, for example, 2 on iron, 2 on clay, 2 on stone. And that simply wouldn't be possible if you weren't playing optimally to get the maximum growth with the fresh settlement bonus. I think most beginners at this point would be sitting around 4 or 5 families behind in terms of town size. They wouldn't have been able to do that whole farming thing down south. So I'm looking at this Burgage plot and thinking I want to go pairs, but I don't have the money to seed them. And at the same time, even if I did have the money, it's a vacant house, so they wouldn't grow anyway. Now, doing this voiceover, I definitely should have gotten that horse. But of course, I also need to get those animal extensions going. So chickens, pigs, goats, and on that point, animal produce is going to be critical for my town because I've got fish, so I don't really have a meat issue. I have an animal produce issue. So that's a toss up between chickens and goats. And in my favorite is chickens because they also produce meat and they produce much faster than goats. No, I should clarify, I'm not saying just do chickens, I'm saying chickens first. You should also have pigs and goats. Not forgetting that we also have to buy other things, like sheep, and in my case also rough stone to turn into dress stone for the future church upgrade. The church is up in the 3rd week of November, which, by the way, is also the time that the cabbages are supposed to be in. We'll take a look at that later. Right now, I'm putting the livestock training station. So these are the guys that they're going to bring in the sheep, and they do take a while. So you want to get them early. So looking at the cabbage farm, you can see that people are indeed harvesting. They won't get all of it, but they'll get some, which is good for reducing the burn rate on the fish and the berries, which we sold a lot of during the early months. Now the stone camp is up, and I have the luxury of putting maximum staff on it to deplete that resource and clear up the area, and then subsequently demolish the camp. And what I also want to do is get a lime kiln up to make about 20 mortar for the church upgrade. For the sheep, I'm starting with about 10 sheep. With the ideal number being 30 eventually, but I don't want to burn through all that coin so quickly, because I do need to buy rough stone. What I can do is upgrade some of these homes, so I'm checking the approval to see which ones I can upgrade. I can actually do all of them, but I'm picking the farms first, and a couple extra single plots, which will eventually become the blacksmith, the most important one, and subsequently tailor, and then a baker, but that's going to be end of next year. Pro tip here regarding sheep pasture: they don't actually need to have any width at all, they just need to have length. It all comes down to how the area of a polygon is calculated over a game that uses a grid system. So right now this is obviously a bug, but until the developers fix it, I don't see why I should beat myself up about it too much. At some point I get tired of building racetracks for sheep, so I just check the pasture size. Got 300, that's well more than enough. By the way, if you followed the rules and made a pasture for 300 sheep, it would be the size of half this town. So I'm doing one more approval check here to identify which houses I can upgrade. And I just pick one and go with it. I think it's probably this whole row is going to be level 2s. Then I zoom out to take a look at the resources. I'm going to want to get iron, because one thing about this latest version, apart from the higher ale consumption, is also the higher tool consumption. So I'm going to be running out of tools in the spring, so this is where I get the iron mine up. Not forgetting the Bloomery to turn it into iron bars, and then also later a blacksmith working on tools. I'm thinking it's also a good idea to set up a second storehouse, whose main purpose will be to pull that iron ore from the faraway mine into a better location for the Bloomery to pick it up. Because otherwise, the miner himself is going to have to do that job when his storage is full, which is time away from mining. Plus, that mine itself is also going to need tools, so that storehouse is also going to have some tools and storage. For the church upgrade, I'm going to need 10 mortar, that's self-produced, and 20 dressed stone, which is really expensive if you buy outright, so I'm just going to buy 20 rough stone, which is still expensive, but I'll be producing the dressed stone from that import. In case you haven't noticed, we haven't bothered with the bandits, which have been stealing from us for months. That's the power of this build right here. By choosing this origin and by selling fish and having maximum growth, you don't really need to deal with the bandits at all. What I do worry about is if those bandits steal any of that rough stone that I'm going to be paying 300 coin for. If they do that, then I'll go out and get them. Now I'm looking at the fuel that I have here, and with 200 charcoal, it basically means that I never had a fuel issue at all. And in hindsight, I should have gotten that second horse, maybe even a third trader, but overall, no complaints. Now checking on the stone situation, it's all done. So demolish, lime kiln. Just checking if I have my 10 mortar. Yes, demolish. And look, I have basically 7 unemployed, which I can put into the iron mine, clay mine, more granary or storehouse workers. Basically, the possibilities are endless, and they definitely served a purpose a couple months ago when I really needed them. So 3 guys in the iron mine in the late January. It's pretty good in my opinion. It's February of year 2, the last year of fresh settlement. I've got 26 population, which is perfect. Just one more to go on the 16th or the 15th. Basically, I'm almost done with the first year of this game and accomplished most of what I set out to accomplish. You'll see here in a moment that um, I have 4 tools left, so that's plenty of time to get the blacksmith up and start making tools. I've got 19 out of 20 rough stone, almost 300 charcoal ready to go. Still have carrots and cabbages from the pre-winter harvest. Basically, I'm in a good spot. So that's the stonemason I'm putting down. Once I get the 20 rough stone, I'm going to turn it on and convert it all to dressed stone, and then turn off the rough stone import. I figured this guy is going to be the blacksmith. The straw house is going to hold the tools, the iron ore, iron bars, tools, and some fuel. I'm going to just disable everything else just to make sure he's not too busy. In a few moments, the final immigrant from Fresh Settlement Bonus arrives on the 15th of February for a total of 27 families in one gameplay year and all these other cool stuff. And if you like what you see, I really do recommend you follow the maximum growth strategy to take full advantage of the first year Fresh Settlement Bonus. Keep a close eye on housing vacancies at all times. Get your early game food out for export as soon as possible. Plant your veggies in July, August, and September for cabbages, carrots, and beets, respectively. Get the barley, wheat, and rye sown in October. Pulling families off your gathering professions if needed. Upgrade the homes in December when they're not working, and start picking up all the ground minerals throughout the winter, like your stone, clay, iron, and so forth. And that's it for the first year. I hope you got something useful out of this. In the next video, I'll be continuing this playthrough through the second year and race to 80% approval, which is going to require getting the ale, level 2 church, and clothing for the level 2 demands. And also other important things like getting the weapons up in preparation for the raiders. So if you like this, or if you have any questions of what I shared, if you have any suggestions of what you'd like to see in part 2, please do drop me a comment below or on Reddit, and I'll see what I can do for part 2.